Poverty also applies in many ways to induced transition. But this topic can lead to long and fruitless debates. In common sense, how can an ordinary man born in a poor neighborhood become rich? We will not consider the criminal path, nor beautiful stories about millionaires. So reasoning based on common sense will lead nowhere. So what good is that common sense to you? Transurfing does not fit into the framework of common sense, but it allows you to do what seems impossible. Acting within the framework of common sense, people get the corresponding result. If a person was born into poverty, is surrounded by poverty, got used to it, and is tuned to radiate energy at the frequency of their miserable lifeline, it is very difficult to rebuild yourself to the line of your wealth if you only have hatred for your poverty, envy of the rich, and the desire to become rich yourself. Or rather, I would say that with only these three things available, it is almost impossible to move to your line of wealth. Let's see why. Probably one of the first discoveries of all children entering life is the fact that if you do not want something, it does not mean you will be spared it. Sometimes a cry of despair springs from my soul, but I do not want it so much. I hate it. Why does it not leave me alone? Why is it always with me? In a fit of indignation, this question is asked not only by children, but also by adults. Indeed, it is difficult to accept the situation that if you do not want something, it still happens, and if you hate it, it simply pursues you. You may hate your poverty, your job, your physical disabilities, neighbors, vagrants, alcoholics, drug addicts, dogs, thieves, bandits, cheeky young people, the government. The more you hate it, the more of it there is in your life. And you know why. It hurts you, you think about it, which means you radiate at the frequency of the lifelines, where the subject of your discontent is present in abundance. It does not matter what polarity this radiation has. I like or I dislike. I dislike is even more effective because the emotions are stronger. On the other hand, what you dislike is a destructive pendulum for you. And that is why you swing it even more with your experiences. Finally, if you actively hate, you create excessive potential. The forces of balance will turn against you because it is easier for them to eliminate you than to change a world that does not suit you. Imagine how many harmful factors are inherent in a negative attitude towards life. Let's go back to the man who was born into poverty. He has a desire to become rich. But desire alone, as you know, changes nothing. You can lie on the sofa and lazily mutter, "Now it would be nice to have a plate of strawberries here." But where to get it, it's impossible. It's winter now. This is roughly how a poor person wants to become rich. If a person is not ready to act to get what they want, they will not get it. And they do not act because they know that nothing will come of it anyway. Here is a vicious circle. Desire has no power. Desire alone cannot even move a finger. It is intention, that is, the determination to act. Intention also includes the will to have. A person may say, "Well, you can't take that away from me. It's so easy because I want to be rich." No, once again, there is a deep chasm between wanting and being ready to become. For example, a poor person may feel out of place in a wealthy environment or in an expensive shop, even if they are struggling to convince themselves and others otherwise. Deep down, they consider themselves unworthy of all this. Wealth is not in a poor person's comfort zone, not because being rich is uncomfortable, but because it is far from everything they know. The new chair is more comfortable, but the old one is more comfortable. Poor people only know the outer side of wealth: luxurious houses, expensive cars, jewelry, clubs. If a poor person is placed in such an environment, they will feel uncomfortable. Then give them a suitcase full of money, and they will start doing all sorts of stupid things and, in the end, lose everything. The frequency of the energy they emit is in strong dissonance with that life. And until they let the attributes of wealth into their comfort zone, until they learn to feel like the owners of expensive things, they will remain poor even if they find a treasure. Jealousy is another barrier to wealth. As you know, envy is anger at someone else's luck. In this sense, envy is not constructive in itself, but there is a very strong destructive element in envy. A person's psychology is so orderly that if they envy what they would like to have, they try in every possible way to devalue it. Here is the logic of black envy. I envy what he has. I don't have this, and it is unlikely to appear. But how am I worse than him? This means that what he possesses is bad, and I do not need it. So the desire to have turns into psychological protection and then turns into rejection. Rejection occurs on a subconscious level because the subconscious takes everything literally. The conscious mind devalues the object of envy only by sight, by complacency, and the subconscious mind takes everything seriously. And here the subconscious mind is doing a disservice. It will do everything possible not to be devalued and rejected. Thus you see what tenacious forces keep a person on a poor lifeline. Events unfold even more dramatically during the induced transition from a wealthy to a poor lifeline. It happens that a completely prosperous person loses everything and ends up on the street. The whole insidiousness of the induced transition to poverty manifests itself in the fact that its spiral unravels, slowly and imperceptibly at first, and then like an avalanche, so that it can no longer be stopped. This spiral begins with temporary financial difficulties. Keep in mind that temporary financial difficulties can happen to anyone. This is as common an inevitability as, for example, rain on the day you are having a picnic. If you do not fall into anger, depression, anxiety, or resentment towards life on this occasion, then the oscillations of the destructive pendulum, not receiving a recharge, will die out. The induced transition begins when you grab the tip of the spiral. For the spiral to turn, you need your response to the destructive pendulum. Your first reaction is dissatisfaction. For the pendulum, this is still too weak a support. And if your emotions are exhausted, the pendulum will die out. Another reaction is indignation, and this is already stronger. And the pendulum has become animated, sending you information that someone is to blame for your financial difficulties. You respond to this second impulse with negative criticism or actions against the culprit. At this point, the destructive pendulum has completely revived, and a new round of the spiral begins. You receive even less pay, or prices have risen, or you are forced to pay off your debt. Note that at this stage, you do not yet realize that a process is underway. It simply seems to you that an annoying problem has occurred. In fact, this is a directed process that you yourself induce in response to the oscillations of the pendulum. The frequency of your energy radiation is increasingly shifting from the lines where you are successful to the line where you feel deprived and indignant. Thus, you are transferred to the lines corresponding to your new parameters. And so your situation gets worse and worse. Bad news comes from all sides. Prices are rising. Your business is not doing well. You begin to actively discuss these negative issues with friends and family. The discussion, as a rule, takes place in a destructive manner, i.e. complaints, discontent, and aggression towards the alleged perpetrators. This is especially evident in companies where things are going very badly. There the day begins with the postulate that there is no money, as in the morning prayer. At this stage, you are already completely caught up in the spiral. Your radiation is tuned to the frequency of the destructive pendulum. As things get worse, you become anxious.